doing. You're getting me with the hood on. It's actually a little bit chilly here. I know, Arizona, crazy. We didn't think it got that way. But thank you so much for being here. My name is Ashley Bright. I am the Message Fixer, and I am your host for the Impact Tribe Live, where we meet, greet, and learn about leaders who are having a positive impact on the world. We're streaming live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Before we get to my amazing guest, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Opus Clip. If you aren't familiar with Opus Clip, they are amazing. They use AI to turn long-form video into short, shareable clips with captions and all sorts of things. I love them. They're amazing. And if you'd like to try them out, we are offering a 30% discount. I'm just going to pop that right there. So if anyone is interested in giving them a whirl, I highly recommend it. All right, so without any further ado, let's get to our guest. I am excited to welcome Robyn Engelson. Robyn is the president and CEO of Impact U. She's also an autoimmune specialist, a nutritional educator, a speaker, a best-selling author, and the host of the Robyn Engelson Podcast. And so let me bring her up on stage. There she is, Robyn. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Ashley.
How is your day going?
Amazing. So
Excellent.
good. So
Excellent.
good. And as you say, it's a little chilly in Arizona. Here in Florida, Central Florida, it was a little chilly this morning. I'm not going to lie. It was a little chilly. My New England family's laughing at me.
I was chatting with my sister just the other day, and I said it was chilly, and she sort of said, like, what does that really mean? Because she's actually out in her garage office working, and she had like the fingerless gloves on so she could type. But I said, I guess it's not quite that cold. All right. Well, so thank you so much for being here. And we've chatted before, but I don't know if anyone else that's watching here has met you or learned about you. And so why don't you, first of all, give us the high level view of what you do and what you love and all those good things.
Absolutely. I'd love to. So I change the trajectory of people's lives. I help them go from exhausted to energized and 90 days to their best life. Whether you're overcoming or want to overcome chronic illness, pain, trauma, burnout, any or all of the above, it all is exhaustion, right? And so I help you live your best life and thrive so you can be the best version of yourself every day, all day.
Wow. And in my little video that I shared this morning, I said that you help people go from exhausted to energized. And I said that we could all use some more energy. And so I'm curious, what sort of transformations are you seeing when you're able to kind of uncover these things for your clients and the people you work with?
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually, because every client's different, because every person's different, right? And it really depends on what they're going through in the moment and what they're looking to achieve and what the end result is that they want. But 9 times out of 10, what I find is that people, my clients, they find themselves, right? Everything they ever wanted was always inside of them, but they didn't know how to express it. They didn't know how to be with it. They didn't know how to live with it, right? And that is such a huge accomplishment to be able to overcome what you went through and have it not dictate and run your life. So you get to run your life from your heart center.
Yes, it's wild. I've only in the last 2 years really, I think, been uncovering those things for myself. And I, up to that point, thought, well, I'm pretty in tune. I feel like I understand myself. And it really became apparent just how, through the course of your life, the layers upon layers of things that get in the way and becomes incredibly difficult to, as you said, sort of find yourself and show up in that full meaning, I guess, of yourself.
Sure.
Are you finding, are there particular industries that you're serving or people are in particular roles or stages of their life?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of different types of people, right? But primarily business leaders. And business leaders can encompass C-suite, it can encompass nurses, it can healthcare, entrepreneurs, Moms are also business leaders in their own world, right? So, and a lot of people, they come to me because they know like they just can't continue the way they're going. They literally hit rock bottom, or they know like they're not getting the promotion as a reason why something's holding them back, but they don't know what that is. Because so many times people bury the burden, meaning that whatever happened to them from their childhood trauma, it's weighing on their shoulders, but they just ignore it because they don't want to deal with it, and because they don't know how to deal with it. And it's going to bring up so many emotions, right? And so many feels that if they're not equipped to deal with it, it's just going to make them worse.
Yeah. No, and it's interesting because I've had this conversation with a number of people that, I grew up, or I've always had that mindset, I think, of, well, trauma is, there's the big ones, abuse and alcoholism and things of that nature. But there's all the micro traumas that you experience through your life. It could have been that moment in elementary school when you didn't get picked or you were made fun of or something.
Yes.
And that becomes part of that programming. And like I've mentioned earlier, that for myself, I didn't experience what I would have quoted as sort of classic trauma, but all of those things have programmed who I am. And it's wild. I use this analogy with someone the other day that, like, in life, you either, driving along in your car, kind of oblivious to what's going on, and it's sort of one of two things happens. One, you crash into a pole and you have to immediately deal with whatever is in the way of your life.
Yep, very true.
The other option that I think is more common is that you start bumping up against the guardrail and you're scratching the car and the wheels are starting to go and there's sparks and you're like slowly coming to a stop. And that's where it's like that slow burn of sort of things, because we just want to maintain. We have family, we have jobs, we have things we have to do.
Right.
And so I'm curious, given as you said, sort of they've created coping mechanisms, they're functioning. What sort of techniques or methods do you use to help people kind of dig through that and start to uncover those layers?
Absolutely. And before I answer that, I want to touch on one thing. There's little of what you said, Ashley. There's things that happen in our childhood, like little things that add up to big things that we don't even realize on how we're programmed, because our childhood dictates how our adult mind is programmed. But we can unprogram the negativity and the trauma and overcome it and make it positive, right? So to that point, some of the things that I do is I help people reprogram their brains. I help them reprogram their mindset to be a model of positive change. Because if you don't, then all of those little things that you're dealing with, the micro things become massive. And what happens is your daily life becomes harder and harder and harder. And then you just break down and have a breakdown because you can't sustain the level that you're going at, because in the back of your mind, all of these things are still happening to you, even though it happened from your childhood. So I use techniques, I use imagery, I use different techniques for mirror work. I use different techniques for writing letters to your childhood self, your current self, your future self, tools to overcome that. What happened to you is not your fault, right? It's not your fault. And so many times we blame ourselves for everything, or we project our blame onto someone else when they have nothing to do with it, right? Because you can only do what you know. Like you do the best with what you have.
Absolutely. I was on a call the other day and it was, we were talking, this topic came up and the person on the call said something effective, like, oh, shut up, self, shut up, like, and someone else on the call kind of said, well, you're still, you're acknowledging, but you're doing it in a negative way that's kind of really making yourself feel bad, versus they suggested, and I've experienced this too, where it's like you acknowledge that part of you that's really just helping you survive.
Right.
It just did something. And
thumbs
acknowledge
up to that.
Exactly. Thumbs up to that. But you acknowledge that, and then it's almost like you say, thank you. And okay, but I've got this. I'm going to go this way. And and I've heard another wonderful line that I keep in mind, which is the body keeps score. And so even though we may, through our day-to-day be able to kind of tamp those things back, the body is going to keep that score, whether it's through kind of physical or health issues or other things that creep up. And eventually it's like that car banging against the guardrails. Eventually you're going to have to deal with it.
Yes, you will, because you're going to hit a wall. And if you don't deal with it, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. You're never going to feel good about it or feel good about yourself.
Absolutely. And so I'm curious, how did you, how long have you been doing this, and what was the path that kind of led you to doing this kind of work?
Yeah, I've been doing this for 13 years. And I come from the marketing and advertising world, which is a little bit different. But it also helped me in understanding the business background of how to grow a business as an entrepreneur. So I've always been an entrepreneur. And so I got into this business because it's in my book, actually. So if you haven't gotten my book, Exhausted to Energize, you need to get my book. And the first line starts off with, I was trying to get pregnant with my second child and I couldn't. Something was wrong. And I went to an infertility specialist and I got all this testing done, like the amount of blood they took. Oh my gosh. And I walked out with an autoimmune disease called Hashimoto's thyroid autoimmune disease, not life-threatening, but completely life-changing. And so my antibodies, which is one of the parts of your thyroid, were off the charts high, and it's your hormone levels. So that explained a lot. But I got sicker and sicker and sicker after I was diagnosed because the doctors weren't listening to me and the medication was literally collapsing me. Wow. And so I went through, without giving all my book away, I went through a 2.5-year journey of getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, not being able to take care of my son, not being able to get out of bed, not being able to work, hair falling out, joint pain, nails falling off, all of this. To figuring it out on my own because the doctors couldn't help me, because the doctors didn't listen to me, because the doctors have no idea how to help someone if they don't feel the way you do. Absolutely. And so I figured out nutrition, fitness, mindset, and accountability, which are the 4 pillars of my program. And so that's how I got into what I did, because after that 2.5-year journey, my neighbors and close friends started asking me what I was doing because they noticed the change. And so I was like, I don't know. I did this, this, and this, and I figured out the solution. And they're like, well, can you help me? I'm like, of course I can. You know, my friends, neighbors, and they got results very quickly. And I started to realize that there's something to this, and it's my heart work because I love to help people thrive in life.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's one of the things that I think is so powerful about the moment in time that we're at, that you can have an experience like that is obviously very personal, but because of technology and because of the reach of media, you can start to create a business around that, help other people around the world, and now write a book. And so with that in mind, would you, the cover's on the back there, but let's have a look. Yeah,
I go this way. I go this way. So I don't know. There we go. Yes, it's Exhausted to Energize, 90 Days to Your Best Self. Launched last week on Kindle and launched this week on paperback. It's a bestseller, #1 in 8 categories, #1 in 11 new release categories. I am just over the moon, elated, well exceeded my expectations. And, you know, actually the bottom line is I get to help that many more people overcome what they're going through and go from exhausted to energized and thrive in life.
And that, I mean, you know, that is purpose, and that is rooted in a personal experience that you've had. And I love that about when I get to have these conversations with people on this show, is they've all experienced a transformation in their lives, and they've capitalized on that and turned it into a way to help other people. Yes. And that's all. Well, first of all, congratulations on the book. I mean, that is no small feat. And congratulations on the reception, and no doubt a lot more impact to come.
Absolutely, for sure. Just getting started, by the way. Just getting started.
Just getting started.
Right.
There's a rocket emoji you can't see that's about to take off.
It's going off.
That is awesome. That's wonderful. And so I assume the book is available at all the usual spots if anyone wants to pick that up.
Premier Amazon is the best option. It is on other outlets as well, but Amazon, just go right to there. And underneath, after we're done with the lives, I will put the link in there for everybody.
Awesome. And so with this, I'm curious, do you run into, in the work that you're doing with people, do you run into any kind of common obstacles or pushback from people, or are people pretty bought in by the time they're already talking to you?
So that's a great question. So they're bought in by the time they're talking to me and working with me, but they're not bought into the work that has to be done, that we have to do together, right? Yep. It's hard work, and it's leaning in. It's having awareness and acknowledging things and talking about things that most people haven't talked about in 30 years, 20, 30 years plus, right? It's bringing up memories that are bad imagery for them, right? So, but the work that we get to do together, and since they trust me, right, I get them to be okay and allow them to do the work, right? So, because the work is where the change happens.
Yeah,
we're not doing nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So
I have that quote on the mirror in my every morning. I look at it. Nothing changes if nothing changes. It's a wonderful quote,
right?
Yes.
It is, right? You got to do the work, and that's why and how I'm able to stand here and talk to you, because I did the work, right? That's how I was able to write my book, because I did the work, right? There's so many things that I can share, that my experiences, that if I did not do the work, I would still be where I was 15, 20 years ago. And that's not a place I wanted to stay.
Absolutely. And so I'm curious so this is obviously you're dealing with, a lot of emotion, a lot of buried thinking, and there's going to be, I think, natural pushback and opposition from people. So once they get to you, they're bought in, it's a little easier. I'm just curious, you said your background is in marketing, and how are you creating those connections and those relationships up front in terms of that initial kind of touch point and then follow up, in order to actually get people then, I assume, on a call to want to work with you?
Most people come to me. So I'm not—
You've got a reputation then.
So, it's one of those things on like social media. I run my business off social media, and I have for years. So it's the know, like, and trust factor, that the people who are not liking or commenting are the ones that are going to be your clients. You just don't know it yet, and they don't know it yet, because they have to know, like, and trust you before they reach out and say, I'm ready, before they reach out and say, let's hop on a call, right? So, but there are plenty of times where I'm in the comments with someone, or we're DMing, and naturally, organically, like how we're having this conversation, something comes up, and I'm like, oh, wow, I can help you. Like, I know what you're going through, because I've been there. I know how you feel, and I'm on the other side. And I just share that with them and share my experience. You got to be a storyteller. Right. So I can just share my stories, and it resonates with them, because I can share where they are is where I was, and where I am now is where they want to be. They just may not think it's possible. So I give them hope. And so through the comments, through the DMs, and then I said, let's hop on a call, right? Let's just talk. Let's just see how I can add value to your day. Right. And the important part is that when I get on the calls, Ashley, it's not a sales call. It's not a sales call. I am genuinely adding value to their day, asking lots of questions, first of all, right? So I can understand where they are, but really just adding value to their day and offering them what I do. And then it's up to them to decide.
Excellent. And so I said in the beginning, like, best-selling author, which you've just spoken to, speaker. And so I'm curious now, this is sort of in my world of communication. Have you always been a natural sort of charismatic speaker, or was that a process as well to kind of get to where you are?
I've always been a natural speaker. I love speaking on stages. I've spoken on stages across the country, and I'm looking forward to going back to that very soon with my book tour. And I love having the impact, right? My company's Impact You. This is the Impact Tribe. Like, there's something about that word that really resonates with my heart. So just from a very young age, I went to college. I looked at colleges specifically that had public speaking opportunities and training and education. I've always loved it. In high school, give me a project where I can present to the class, and instead of taking a test every day, all day. It's just my personality. My father's the same way. I'm very similar to him in that way. But it's really just about giving the impact and adding value through my heart.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, that word, I don't think that word really came into my world until about probably about 6 years ago. And I think it was, I think getting older, having kids, having a better experience of the world, suddenly impact becomes so vital. And what I love about that is it's both universal, and it allows for so many different people to participate, because it can be individual one-to-one, it can be one-to-many, it can be a small thing or a big thing. And that's what I get excited about. I feel like the opportunity that people have now to create impact in their community with individuals is amazing, and we all need to be doing more of it. And so
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to be able to showcase people that do
I love that. I love that so much. And I always think about what's the impact you get to do every day and value you get to add to people's lives, because that's your legacy. Like, what are you going to be known for? Right? Someone had a post today on LinkedIn, and their question, the call to action was, what's your legacy that you're leaving? Like, what do you want to leave as your legacy? I forget the wording exactly, something to that point, right? And I said, I want to be known for adding value and impacting people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, that is so powerful. I watched a commencement speech the other day, and this person was saying, and this was someone that had been at over 1,000 people's deathbed conversations, and said that nobody at that point is wanting to look at their accreditations or their awards or their money or whatever. They want people around them that care and that they've had an impact on. And I think in our technological world, it's nice to see that we're still human beings. We still need that human connection, that human experience. And so with that in mind, I want to ask, so you obviously were a real catalyst for addressing the things that were going on in your life from health, because it sounded like the doctors weren't listening, they weren't getting it. And so I'm curious, you mentioned your father just a minute ago. What individuals have been in your life that have really helped impact you, and what have you learned from them?
So first and foremost, and when you buy my book, you'll know my book is dedicated to my Nana, Anna.
Oh, yeah.
She was my mom's mom, and she was my biggest cheerleader. She and I are very, very similar. She taught me about attitude. She taught me about confidence. She taught me about adding value and impact. She taught me lessons at such a young age that I didn't even realize were going to impact me as an adult, as an entrepreneur in my work life, right? And how I raised my son. So my Nana for sure. My life coach, best investment I ever made was in my life coach. Every good coach has a coach. She changed the trajectory of my life, hands down. And she wrote the forward in my book.
Oh, wow.
Her name is Mona Kazan. She's an absolutely amazing human. One of the most amazing humans I know on this planet. My other mentor, Christy Burnham, who's also wrote something in my book as well.
Wow.
She was one of my mentors, and she's the one that showed me, just messy action is better than no action. Just do it. Just do it. Get out there and do it. And don't really give a, what about what anybody thinks, because they're not responsible for your health, for your livelihood, for your mindset, right? And then there's other people that I've recently met here on LinkedIn in the past year or two, that also wrote some things in my book as well, that just really have made such an influence on me, and just mentor, silent mentors also, just becoming friends with someone that you didn't know a year ago that really can have an influence on your life. And here's the thing. My friend Lauren, who's on LinkedIn, met her on LinkedIn. I've met in person a couple times, and we both live in Florida, which is pretty cool. But I've added so much value to her life without even knowing it, Ashley. That's the cool part, right? Yeah. That's the cool part. And she was one of my beta readers. And so she read the book before anybody else gave me comments and, feedback to make it better for everybody else. And, there's a long list of people, but there's a certain, smaller amount of people that really, your inner circle, your tribe, right? Your tribe, your
Mhm.
impact tribe.
Yep,
And
yep.
so, right, that really just, intentionally building community and intentionally connecting with people is at your human heart and my heart work.
Absolutely. I have in probably the last year, I have engaged in LinkedIn in a different way. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember I posted a video a couple months back where I was talking about the importance of having a support system around you.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Obviously, there's family; those are very close, and you've known many of
Mm-hmm.
them obviously your whole life. But
Mm-hmm.
that tribe that is, they understand the challenges of being an entrepreneur. They
Yes.
understand the challenges of how to show up on
Right.
social media, how to build
Mm-hmm.
relationships,
Yes.
and it's so important. And that's one of the things too for anyone watching this that is hesitant. One of the most powerful things I've learned in the last year and a half, 18 months or so, is asking for help,
Mm-hmm.
being comfortable saying, I'm not sure how to do this, I
Mm-hmm.
need some input. And because I for years was very nervous about doing that, but what I found
Mm-hmm.
is that 90% of the time those people step forward, they want to help, even if it's like, hey, can you share this post, hey, can you give a
Right.
comment,
Right.
or something more deep or meaningful or impactful around, like, I don't know where to go with this business, I'm not sure how to deal with this emotion. And I just wish it hadn't taken me 40 years or 35 years or so to
Right.
figure that out. There's that, when you're young, you're just like, nothing can stop you,
Right.
you're just going. And then
Wow.
at a certain point, all those things kind of pile up, and you're like, wow, I'm not superhuman. I can't fix all
Right.
this.
Yes, yes. And I think asking, to your point, I think most of us, especially entrepreneurs, right? We think we can do it all, and we can. But there's the power in asking for help and being vulnerable really is a huge leadership attribute that most people don't do. Because when
Mhm.
you ask for help, you're going to get value in return, right? And then you can be better, and that person can be better because they helped you.
Absolutely. I think it's very unfortunate that in our culture, and especially in business, this idea that being vulnerable, being transparent, admitting you maybe don't know how to do something is seen as a weakness.
Right.
Whereas it's really a strength. This
Mm-hmm.
is an opportunity to bring people into your world. If you're a leader, this is an opportunity to demonstrate to your team that it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to not know, because your team, they're human beings too. They're
Yes.
going to not know either. And so if they feel like, God, I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell them, I don't know what to do, then that's where I think a lot of those problems come up as leaders, where you're like, why is my team doing this or that? It's like, because they're terrified of making a mistake.
Absolutely. And you know what? The only way that I got to where I am and where my clients got to where I am, and maybe you, perhaps, I'm not going to speak
Mm-hmm.
for you, but we made mistakes. Like, we
Yes.
failed, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the lesson in the failure to get us to the next step? If we don't fail, and all of the, major successful people that we know of, they've all failed more than once.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen more than a few interviews with very successful people in different industries,
Mhm.
and I think it was George Clooney who framed it
Mhm.
best, where he said, "I learn nothing from success.
Yeah.
I learn
So
everything
true.
from failure."
So true.
And it's so evident and obvious, but our culture seems to just perpetuate this idea that you need to be perfect,
Mm-hmm.
and it's BS.
It is. It is.
Nobody is perfect. In fact, I have these little cards that I open one every day. I don't know if you can
Oh,
read
cool.
that.
I like it. Yeah,
You
I
got
can.
this. And they're
Yeah.
little motivational cards. I'm just looking. The one I opened today said, "You're allowed to be a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously."
Yep. I've heard that before. I love that.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a great one. It's a great
so
one.
cool.
I want to be respectful of time. We're just coming up on time. And so,
Perfect.
Robyn, I always end with this question.
Mm-hmm.
If there's one thing that you could be remembered for,
Mm-hmm.
what would you like that to be?
Authenticity.
Mm.
Be you, boo, is what I say. Be authentically you, because the world needs you. The world
A-
needs more of you. Everything you ever wanted is all inside of you. You just get to discover it.
Absolutely. I love that. And so just before we jump off, is there any, if people want to, you said you're going to be doing kind of the book tour. Have you
Yeah.
got any upcoming speaking gigs? How can people learn more about you, engage with you, support the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, I'm Robyn Engelson. So you can find me there. And also my website is robynengelson.com.
Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to say, Robyn, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. I appreciate your comments and your attention. For anyone who missed this, it will be streaming live, or excuse me, not live. It will be replayed on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Opus Clip. I'm going to hit my little button here so I can get that back up there. If anyone is interested, there is a discount code that you can use. And join me for our next Impact Tribe Live, which is going to be Thursday, December 5th, when my special guest will be Brooke Dieterlein, who is the CEO of Courageous Leadership, a founding corporate director of the Heroic Imagination Project, a multi-time TEDx speaker, and so much more. So with that, I will once again say, Robyn, thank you so much for your time and your energy and all the amazing things you're doing. For anyone out there, check out her book, check out her programs, so much good stuff. And thank you again, Robyn, and everyone have a wonderful rest of the week and a wonderful weekend. Thank you. All right, I'm going to hit my little buttons here and we'll be done.